Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the massive industry that powers the entire Sultanate of Oman. But we're not just looking at the big, famous names. Nope. We're going to focus on the critical, often invisible specialists who are the real gears keeping this economic engine running.
And that is not an exaggeration. For Oman, the oil and gas sector isn't just an industry. It really is the economic engine. It's the force that drives everything: the revenue, the development, and the country's strategic growth on the world stage.
So, to really get a handle on the role these specialists play, we first need to understand just how fundamental this industry is. Let's break down exactly why it's considered Oman's economic backbone.
What's so interesting here is how the impact just cascades. I mean, it starts with being the main contributor to GDP and exports, which is obviously huge. But then that revenue becomes the foundation for literally everything else. The petrochemical plants, those massive industrial zones you see in places like Dak and Solhar, and, this is crucial, a major source of high-skilled jobs for the Omani people. It's a complete ecosystem, all built on this one pillar.
But here's the thing about engines, right? Especially ones that have been running for a long, long time. They get more complex to maintain. The industry in Oman is what experts call mature, and that introduces a really fascinating and critical challenge.
So what does a mature oil field actually mean? Well, think of it like trying to get the last little bit of honey out of a jar. When it's full, it just pours right out. Easy. But when you get to the very bottom, you need special tools, clever techniques. You have to work for it. It's exactly the same with oil. The easy-to-reach stuff is mostly gone, and now the real work begins.
And the industry has a name for all these clever techniques: enhanced oil recovery, or EOR for short. Now, this is not about simply drilling more holes in the ground. EOR involves incredibly sophisticated, advanced methods to squeeze every last viable drop from the reservoirs they already have. It's a game of science and engineering precision. So, this mature field status creates three massive imperatives for the operators. I mean, these are non-negotiable. First, they absolutely have to maximize recovery. That's the EOR we just talked about. Second, they have to improve the integrity of all their aging equipment, and we're talking everything from wells to pipelines. And third, they have to do all of this with an absolute, unwavering focus on safety, a zero-incident culture.
Now, tackling these challenges requires a very specific, very deep level of expertise. The big operators, well, they just can't do it all themselves. They need partners who live and breathe these complex problems every single day. And that, right there, is where the specialists come in. To make this all feel real, let's look at a company that's right there on the front lines: Bowsher Energy. They're a key Omani service provider, and they really represent this vital layer of the industry that provides the specialized support needed to solve these modern oil field challenges. You can think of them as the expert pit crew for Oman's oil engine. See, their mission isn't to own the oil itself, but to keep all the machinery running at peak performance. They're on call 24/7 to enhance production, safeguard that massive infrastructure, and just make sure there are zero interruptions to this critical national operation. All right, that's the big picture. But what does this work actually look like on the ground? Out in the middle of the desert, next to a pipeline or a wellhead. Let's dive into the specifics of what they do. This table just illustrates the whole dynamic perfectly. On the left, you see a critical problem that pops up in the field, like a well going down or a pipeline getting old. And then bam, on the right, you have the specialist solution. A pipeline gets clogged. That's not a job for a general crew. That requires something highly specialized, like hydrojetting, to restore flow without causing damage. For every major challenge, there's a precise, expert-level solution. We can really break their work down into two main fronts. On one side, you have everything that happens right there at the well itself, supporting the drilling, testing the flow, and just making sure that well is performing exactly as it should. And then on the other side, you have the monumental task of maintaining the integrity of the vast, sprawling network of pipelines and facilities that carry the oil. Both are absolutely critical. And remember that third big challenge we mentioned? Safety? Well, it is woven into absolutely everything they do. This isn't just about efficiency. A huge part of their job is managing hazardous waste, making sure old sites are decommissioned safely, and being ready for any spills, all while sticking to the incredibly strict standards set by Oman's major operators and regulators. Okay, so all this highly technical work out in the field, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It connects directly to Oman's biggest national ambition, Vision 2040. That's the country's master plan to transform the entire economy for the future. And right at the heart of that vision is this philosophy. The idea is that the wealth generated by the oil industry has to be used to build sustainable, local value. This concept is so important it has its own name, in-country value, or ICV. This chart makes ICV crystal clear. It's basically a formula for reinvesting in the nation itself. And it's such a smarter, more sustainable model, because instead of just extracting a resource and sending it away, you're building a resilient local economy around it. As you can see, a huge piece of the pie is about hiring and training Omanis, developing their skills for the long haul. And local specialists, like Bowsher Energy, are the embodiment of this ICV strategy in action. So as Oman builds toward that future, this is its strategic roadmap. It's about getting more from existing fields, through EOR, sure, but it's also about pushing into digital tech, integrating renewables, and constantly upgrading all that infrastructure. These aren't just buzzwords, they're the pillars of the country's future energy security. And here's where it all connects. The work of these specialists is absolutely essential to achieving every single one of those future goals. By improving efficiency, they make these complex EOR projects actually make sense economically. By ensuring asset integrity, they're building a foundation that's going to last for decades. They are, in effect, future-proofing Oman's entire energy sector. So ultimately, what we have is this deeply symbiotic relationship. The major operators rely on these local experts to solve their most complex problems and help them meet their national value goals. And in turn, these specialist companies get to grow by providing indispensable, high-tech solutions. It's a partnership that is literally powering the nation's progress. Which leaves us with a final thought from this whole explainer. We've just pulled back the curtain on the hidden ecosystem that supports one of the world's most visible industries. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other unseen specialists, what other systems and relationships are quietly powering the world all around you?